turned up out of nowhere on the pretense of being a second cousin of his. The fellow's an absolute outsider. You're going to have to look at him to see that. Uriah Heath and a bushy black beard.
Most unappetizing.
Well, the mater took him on as her secretary. You know, she's always running hundreds of societies, and of course it's got much worse for the war. No doubt this fellow was quite useful to her, but she could have knocked us all down with a feather when 3 months ago she announced that the two of them were going to be married.
How old is this chap?
Oh, he's at least 20 years younger than the mater, and he's beginning to have the most abominable influence over her. She can't make a decision without him, but you'll be able to see for yourself when you come down.
Life at Styles Court did not sound exactly promising, but John had always been rather prone to look on the gloomy side of things. He met me at the absurd little station at Styles St Mary and drove us through the quiet Essex lanes. It seemed almost impossible to believe that not all that far away a great war was being fought.
I'm afraid you'll find it pretty quiet down here.
Oh, but my dear fellow, that's exactly what I want.
It's pleasant enough if you're content to lead the idle life. Have you got the time on you?
Just after 5.
Oh, too late to pick up Cynthia then. She'll have left the hospital by now.
Cynthia, that's not your wife.
No, Cynthia's a protégée of the mater's, the daughter of a school friend of hers. She married a rascally solicitor who came a cropper. He killed himself, his wife died, and the poor girl was left an orphan and penniless. The mater came to the rescue, and she's been living with us ever since. Nearly 2 years now. She works at a dispensary in the hospital in Tadminster.
We turned off through the lodge gates at Styles Court and drove up the long drive. As we stopped in front of the house, a lady in a sturdy tweed skirt straightened up from the flower bed.
Back from the station already?
I've collected our wounded hero, Evie. This is my old friend Hastings.
Welcome to Styles Court, Captain.
Thank you, Miss Howard. The garden's keeping you busy, I see.
Weeds grow like a house on fire. You better watch your step or I'll get you working on them too.
I'm sure I'll be any tutor likely to make myself useful.
Don't say it. Soon wish you hadn't.
Where's tea, inside or out?
Out. Too fine a day to be cooped up in the house.
Come on then, Evie, and be refreshed. The labourer is worthy of his hire, you know.
Tea was spread out under the shade of a great sycamore. Lawrence was stretched on the grass reading.
You remember my brother, of course.
Very well. Good to see you, Lawrence.
And you. All things considered, you're looking remarkably well.
And this is my wife, Mary.
How do you do, Captain Hastings? Sit yourself down. That chair's probably the most comfortable.
I shall never forget my first sight of Mary Cavendish. The vivid sense of slumbering fire that seemed to find expression only in those wonderful tawny eyes of hers.
You must be glad to be out of your convalescent home at last. Dreadfully depressing places, I've always thought.
Oh, I don't know. One learns to make the best of things, and a sense of humour helps a good deal.
Then you will like your princess. When she shall be at Windsor, I think.
Here comes the mater.
There's no mistaking that voice, is there? As long as I've known her, she's been trying to persuade someone to something or other.
I'll compromise the Lady Catherine for the second day. Or should we wait until we hear from the princess?
My dear, do you think it might be better to delay writing to the lady? If the
Captain Hastings. How delightful to see you at Styles again after all these years. Alfie, darling, this is Captain Hastings.
A pleasure to make your acquaintance. Is soldiering your regular profession, Captain?
No, before the war I was at Lloyd's.
And you will return there when the war is over?
Perhaps I might well make a fresh start altogether.
And what would you choose if you could do exactly as you wish?
Well, that depends.
And what would you really like to do, Captain Hastings?
Well, to tell the truth, I've always had a secret hankering to be a detective.
Better than Lloyd's, at any rate.
But what kind, Captain? A chief inspector or a Sherlock Holmes?
Oh, Sherlock Holmes every time.
And have you had any experience of detective work?
Well, I can't say I have, but I came across a chap in Belgium before the war, a very fine detective, and he said it all depended on method.
Don't mind a good detective story now and then. But it's all a load of rubbish, really. Keep you waiting to the last chapter for the criminal to be unmasked. In real life, you'd know at once.
You mean that if you were involved in a crime, Evie, you'd know the murderer straight away?
Of course I would. I'd feel it in my fingertips the moment he came near me. It might be a she. Might be, but murder's more a man's business. Not in the case of poisoning. Isn't that supposed to be the woman's weapon? Dr. Bauerstein, who knows all about these things, says there are probably dozens of murders that go unsuspected because the medical profession knows next to nothing about uncommon poison.
Oh, it was a very gruesome conversation. I feel as if a goose were walking over my grave. Ah, but here's Cynthia.
You're very late today, my dear. I'm sorry. There's a last-minute rush at the dispensary.
Cynthia Murdoch looked delightfully fresh in her VAD uniform. She sat down on the grass by my chair, and I handed her the plate of sandwiches.
Why don't you come and sit here beside me? It's so much nicer.
What a very good idea. You work in the dispensary at Tadminster, I gather, Miss Murdoch.
For my sins.
And how many people have you poisoned?
Oh, simply hundreds.
And when you finish your tea, Cynthia, could you come and write a few notes for me?
Of course, Aunt Emily. I'll come straight away.
And perhaps we might have a little chat, Captain Hastings, before dinner. I'd love to hear your views about the war. I shall be in my boudoir.
Of course, Mrs. Inglethorpe, I'll be delighted. My bedroom was in the left wing and looked over the park. From my window I saw John walking slowly across the grass, arm in arm with Cynthia Murdoch. She looked so full of life and vigour, in contrast to John, who seemed gloomy and worn out.
Cynthia? Cynthia, where are you?
The girl rushed off back into the house. From the shadow of the trees I noticed Lawrence looking after her, very melancholy and every inch the wistful poet. It was time for me to go down and talk to Mrs. Inglethorpe.
That's such a comfort. That was real closer at last. I could hang my head in shame at the way those stepsons of mine carry on, as if the war had nothing to do with them.
Oh, surely.
Oh, I know. Lawrence is slightly lame, and John is technically too old for service, but as you well know, Captain Hastings, there are older men than John at the front, and boys more disabled than Lawrence. John goes out drilling with the territorials once a week, but what good does that do?
And Lawrence?
He writes those miserable little poems of his, oozing self-pity. Oh, why can't he write something stirring, patriotic? Sons of mine, I hear you thrilling to the trumpet call of war. Well, at least Mary works with the land volunteers. Gets up every morning before 5 and works till lunchtime. And the starving out. Simply plain police to be out there at the front, but I can't spare him. I really can't.
You need him for your bazaars and charities.
I simply do not know what I would do without that man. And he put this house on a real war footing. Nothing is wasted, a salve, a scrap of food, not a single piece of paper. And we've given up late dinner, of course, as has Lady Tadminster, our member's wife. You have to be content because you are after supper this evening, Captain Mason.
But for all her talk of economy, supper seemed a positive feast after so many cheerless meals at the convalescent home. That night I was kept awake by the unrelentingly beautiful song of the nightingales. All my thoughts were of the enigmatic Mary Cavendish. But there was no sign of her in the house the following morning, and it was not until after lunch that she made an appearance.
You can't possibly waste a glorious afternoon like this sitting alive.
So we set off on a charming walk through the woods and across the fields.
I try to get out as much as I can. It can get quite claustrophobic at times. Two married women shouldn't have to share the same house.
Mrs. Inglethorpe can't be an easy woman to live with.
Oh, don't misunderstand me, Captain Hastings. I have a great affection for Emily. But she does insist on having her own way. And she treats John and Lawrence as if they were still schoolboys. It wasn't too bad until Alfred Inglethorpe came on the scene, but now she won't listen to anyone except darling Alfred. Oh, sometimes I wish...
What do you wish?
No, don't let's talk about it anymore. It's much too lovely a day. We'll cut across down to the stream. You might see a kingfisher, but we mustn't be too long. I promised John we'd be back by 5.
Thank God you're here at last. It's the very deuce of a mess. Evie's had a row with Inglethorpe and she's been given her marching orders.
Why? What actually happened?
Apparently she went to the mater and... But here she is. She can tell you herself.
Well, I've spoken my mind at any rate. Evie, this simply can't be true.
It's true enough. I said a few things to Emily. She won't forget in a hurry. There's no fool like an old fool, I told her. That man's 20 years younger than you, and don't kid yourself he's after anything but your money. And why do you think he's spending so much time down by Long Farm? Mrs. Raikes is a very pretty woman, and he doesn't go over there just to talk about how her crops are doing.
Good Lord, and what did she say to that?
She said I was a wicked woman to tell such terrible lies about darling Alfred, and the sooner I left the house, the better. So I'm off.
But not now, surely.
This very minute. Do you think you would run me down to the station, Mr. Cavendish?
I'll go and check the times of the train.
At least wait until I've had